Hello students, welcome to Legacy IAS Academy. In this video, we are going to discuss about the engagement that we are seeing along the Bangladesh-Myanmar border. It has seen that the Bangladeshi border guard has interacted with the Arakan army, that is a rebel group, a military insurgent group operating in the Rakhine state of Myanmar, because of the abduction carried out of 4 Rohingya refugees. Basically, these 4 Rohingya refugees were fishermen. They are fishing in the waters along the borders of Myanmar and Bangladesh, and it is during these times they were abducted by the members of Arakan army. In this context, the press conference was held by the Bangladesh border guards, and they have stated that due to the conversation and talk with the counterpart from the Arakan army, followed by the negotiation, Bangladesh was able to secure the release of these fishermen just on the next day. This is also in clear contrast to 55 Bangladeshi fishermen who were abducted by the Buddhist dominated insurgent groups in the mid-April, and they were basically abducted and kept in captivity for several days and even months, and it is after a long lasting negotiation finally they were released to the Bangladesh as such. So as compared to that, this release has happened in a much more quick time interval, or basically we can say much more shorter time interval as such. Now let us try to understand geography of this particular area. So if you look at the map here, you have Bangladesh, then you have the Cox's Bazar district. As you can see from the map, it is the Cox's Bazar district that is basically sharing border with the Rakhine state of Myanmar, and this is the entire Myanmar, with Naypyidaw being the administrative capital. Now, as far as the Myanmar is concerned, we can understand that it is in the what you can call as it is in the clutches of civil war like situation, where the eastern part of Myanmar is largely being controlled by the military junta. Military junta, again, it has toppled and carried out a coup in which it has toppled the regime led by Aung San Suu Kyi, which was a civilian democratically elected government. And since last 3 years, it is Myanmar's military regime which has established itself over the Myanmar. And against this particular regime, we can see several different groups. They have taken up arms, and one of those groups, the major group, is the Arakan army. And as of now, Arakan army seems to be in a total control of the coastal Rakhine state of Myanmar as such. Now, early instances of similar kinds have also happened before, because as per the Bangladesh, it seems that there has been a spate of kidnapping of Rohingya refugees, and interestingly, the Rohingya refugees are not only kidnapped by the Arakan army, there also have been report of kidnapping being done by the Myanmarese military itself. However, the purpose and objective of this kidnappings differ. For example, as far as the Myanmarese military junta is concerned, they kidnap Rohingyas so that they can put them in the force and they should fight against the rebel group. On the other hand, if we talk about the Arakan army, they largely kidnap them largely to have some sort of revenue from them. So that is the two major differences. Now, due to the border guard Bangladesh activity and dominance on the border, the members of the Arakan army involved in the abduction of 4 fishermen have quickly settled the issue as such. This is what Bangladesh government has said. Now, Myanmar obviously is not very happy with the kind of relationship that the Bangladesh government has built up with the Arakan army, because Myanmar's military considered Arakan army as a rebel group, as a group that should not exist at all. So that is why the capital, Naypyidaw, talk about, that is the administrative capital, it had expressed disappointment with Bangladesh engagement with the Arakan army as such. On the other hand, Bangladesh has defended this move. For example, the Foreign Affairs Ministry of Bangladesh has clearly stated that the reason why Bangladesh has to engage with the Arakan army is because of the flux, a huge flux in the flood of Rohingya refugees that has continuously poured in the Bangladesh from across the border. So if they do not consult and keep in contact with the Arakan army, this problem of refugee will keep on getting worse in the future. And as per the recent report, it is believed that over 1 million Muslims from the Rakhine states have taken refuge in the Cox's Bazar district of Bangladesh, at least since 2017. Now, many of these refugees not only have limited themselves and are living in Bangladesh, they also have entered into the territory of India as well. And the reason why they had to flee, obviously, again Bangladesh said it is because of the military junta, and that is why military junta cannot blame now Bangladesh that Bangladesh is trying to have engagement with the Arakan army, because it is the military junta that began to forcefully expel the Rohingyas from the Rakhine state, because they believed that they do not belong in Myanmar, they should go to some other countries such as Bangladesh is from where they have originally come from. And that is why they began to attack villages and set homes on fire in pursuit that the Rohingya refugees never are able to return back to Myanmar as such. Now, this refugee problem has continuously grown up to such an extent that it is also believed by United Nations and its agency that a famine-like situation can be created due to the lack of enough food resources, food supply, and continuously growing number of Muslim refugees and the Rohingya refugees as such. However, recently we talk about the Bangladesh government has released a statement where it has accepted that over 118,000 Rohingya refugees have entered Bangladesh in the last 1 year itself, since November 2023, and this number further has showed up because of the civil war-like situation that has developed in the Rakhine state, when Arakan army became relatively stronger and began to take control of key states and the key regions of the Rakhine province, and also they are trying to now attack the Chin province that is lying in the northern part of Rakhine as such. Yeah, so this overall development, we talk about the refugee problem largely, which Bangladesh is facing, is largely a result of two situations. One is civil war that we have discussed, and other is the changing control. So, Rakhine state that we have discussed, that the Myanmar's military junta has left the region, has left the particular state, and now Arakan army is in a dominant position here. As far as the UNHCR is concerned, it has also accepted that the number of refugees have continuously grown up in the Bangladesh Cox's Bazar region and is expected to further increase as the situation worsens in the Rakhine state as such. And that is why they have requested Dhaka, the capital of Bangladesh, to build more homes for the newly arrived as such. Now, this is something that also Bangladesh is facing a problem with, because the government and the border guards of Bangladesh is continuously saying that the infrastructure that we have in that particular border area is not sufficient enough to home all the refugees that are continuously coming from along the Myanmar, and that is why the only long-term solution will be to ensure that they are returned back, repatriated back to the homeland, that is Myanmar, and the arrangements should be made in this regard, such as development of humanitarian aid corridor or development of a refugee corridor. However, still a lot of work is required to be done in this particular regard. Now, as far as the Rakhine is concerned, Bangladesh also believe that in a Rakhine state, apart from wresting control from the Myanmar's military junta, Arakan army also is trying to change the demography of this particular area. And they basically are trying to minimize the Muslim population. They're trying to make Rakhine state a kind of Buddhist majority region as such. And the Arakan army is trying to wipe out Rohingyas from the state permanently, and that is the major problem that Bangladesh faces, because as far as the Rohingyas are concerned, they do not have any friend in the Myanmar as such, because both military junta of Myanmar as well as the Arakan army of Myanmar, both are trying to wipe out them, both are trying to ensure that they leave the country permanently as such. And Bangladesh, on the other hand, has been pushing Myanmar to allow the refugees back to their homes. And in this regard, recently a meeting in Bangkok was held between the Foreign Affairs Minister of Bangladesh and the Foreign Affairs Minister of Myanmar as well. And as a result of these discussions and deliberations, it was agreed upon by the Myanmar that out of the 800,000 refugees, Rohingya refugees largely that you have in the Bangladesh, about 180,000 are eligible to return. Why they are eligible to return? Because it has been established that they actually are citizen of Myanmar and such. Another 70,000 are undergoing additional scrutiny to ensure that whether they are eligible to return or not. Now, the Arakan army have been accused of torturing Rohingyas people for alleged harboring members of ARSA. ARSA stand for Arakan Rohingya Salvation Army. If you look at the top image here, these are the ARSA fighters, clearly identified by their blue dress, while on the downward side you can see it is a general of Arakan army, and they wear camouflaged green dress, as you can see from here, green uniform we can say. So both of these groups are also active in the same Rakhine state and are fighting against each other, and also they are fighting against the military junta as such. So that is the kind of situation that Myanmar is witnessing today. However, as I told you, that the main goal of Arakan army is to ensure that Rakhine become a majority, Buddhist majority state, and that is why they are also fighting against ARSA and are torturing the Rohingya people, because they feel that it is from these people the ARSA is getting their command, control, and also cadres as such. Now, the Arakan army is more brutal than junta forces. One of the Rohingya refugees who was interviewed in Bangladesh have stated this, and he also had clearly stated that if Bangladesh sent them back without ensuring safety by some forces such as the forces that might be led by United Nations peacekeeping United Nations, that will be suicidal first, because there are two different forces that are active there, Myanmar's military and the Arakan army, and both currently seen to be bloodthirsty for the Rohingyas. Now, what we can understand as far as the conclusion is concerned, that Bangladesh had tried to send the stateless people back ever since to little avail. Now, it is not that in the recent time Bangladesh government has begun engagement with the Arakan army or the Myanmar's government as such. Since early days of this Rohingya refugee problem, we have seen Bangladesh try to engage with the Myanmar, and they are trying to establish the fact that these refugees that have come, they are the legal resident, they are the real citizens of Myanmar, and that is why their place is not in Bangladesh but in the Myanmar as such. But again, because Myanmar itself is facing such a big problem, zero situation, they are not willing to accept them back as such. Now, Bangladesh obviously now has said that the only way possible for it is to help the UN supply food and emergency relief to the Rakhine state, because if Bangladesh do not allow it, in that case, the famine-like situation, the malnutrition, hunger-like situation will prevail here, that will push more and more refugees in the Cox's Bazar region. So, it is for the benefit of Bangladesh, it will help the UN supply food and emergency relief to the Rakhine state if and when is required. And it is also in this context we have to understand Bangladesh is trying hard to bring on board Myanmar's military junta, Arakan army, and the other stakeholders such as regional powers like China and maybe India, and also apart from that United Nations, to ensure that the refugee corridor and the humanitarian aid corridor can be opened up between Cox's Bazar to Rakhine, and it should not be attacked either by the rebel group like Arakan army or by the Myanmar's military such. So we have to wait, watch and see that how this entire situation unfolds in the future, whether the Rohingya refugee problem, the Rohingya refugee crisis becomes better or worse, because it will have implications on India as well, because obviously if Bangladesh is not able to accommodate the Rohingya refugees, if they do not feel that they are able to meet their demands such as basic food, water and all that, in that case there is a real possibility that the porous border of Bangladesh and India can be used by these refugees to enter India as well, which itself is facing a big problem of illegal migrants from Bangladesh that also has changed the demography in a lot of and most of the northeastern state as such. So that is what we have to be careful about and be concerned about. That's all for this particular video. If you like the video, please hit like button, share it with your friends, as well as subscribe to the channel for more such content. Thank you very much.